Yeah, a very good evening and you're welcome to Terrace Talk, the first of the month of February. We've ticked past those January nights and somewhat getting some bit brighter out there. Still dark, but it's getting there. It'll be bright at the start of the programme very, very soon. It's live and with you until 8 o'clock this evening. Once again, action-packed programme with our men's, ladies and hurlers all in action. We'll review all that in the next hour or two. We'll also talk to the Clarny woman who's just home from her trip to Como, the head of Women Erasmus programme, of course, with the FAI. Clarny coach selected on that. We'll be chatting to her and the head of education with the FAI. And the 1997 World Snooker Champion, he's coming to Ballydesmond. He'll be chatting to us a little later on, Mr. Ken Doherty. Hard to believe it, 30 years next year, Ken Doherty won his World Snooker title. As ever, you can get in touch with the programme, 083 300 3300 with any of your views or anything after the weekend that was in the sporting terms. You can text or WhatsApp that number, or you can give a call 066 712 3666. And if you're in the farther reaches of the planet, you can also get in touch via email, terracetalk@radiokerry.ie. So yeah, plenty of Kerry sporting action. One that I'll forget to mention later on, so I mention it now, is Clarny's Noel O'Sullivan, of course, winner of the Galway International Rally over the weekend, starting off his defence of the Irish Tarmac Rally Championships. Well done to Derry driver Callum Devine and Clarny co-driver Noel O'Sullivan on that one. It's one that I'll forget to mention a little later on. But we're starting with football, and of course our women played a little earlier today, but we're going to start with the men's team, of course, beaten by Donegal in what was an All-Ireland repeat. I wouldn't say a replay, repeat is the word to use there. Donegal getting the better of the Kingdom 122 to 118, joined as ever by our former Kerry men Liam Brosnan and John Kennedy. Liam, you've bags under your eyes, you had a long all spin home.
It was a good old weekend, Ivan. The result wasn't what it was, but look, at the same time it was a well-worked exercise. The weekend for both us as supporters and definitely the management and team.
Yeah, look, it's a long spin, but it is a nice one. It was a good Kerry crowd there looking at the telly from back at home yesterday as well, and it is kind of a nice experience this time of year. I know it's a bit early, but the weather conditions were great and everything else. Good, dry roads for driving and everything else. It's a nice aspect of the league. You get to go up to places like Armagh, Donegal, and previous times the likes of your Tyrones and everything else, Derry. It's a nice experience, isn't it? You usually meet these teams in Croke Park.
It is, and the supporters are wonderful, both the Kerry supporters and the Donegal supporters. We met Fermanagh supporters Saturday night as well. We had great old chat and banter, and there's a great I suppose love, and kind of we all love the same thing really. It's the GAA, and it's no matter where you go, no matter where you travel in the world, if you can talk to GAA, you will meet someone who'll sit down and talk with you. And like the Donegal supporters, I suppose they were disappointed. All right, that's the one thing when David Clifford never showed up, because a lot of them, there were a lot of young kids there.
John Kennedy for that.
Yeah, and they never, that's the one thing. But they said, and they asked the next question, then was Paddy there, and we said no, and you could see that next, and Shawnee Shea there, and then they were happy with that. But it just shows, what it means, these guys to even outside of Kerry.
Yeah,
they're big names, but look, it's David was a bit of a loss, all right, for the supporters the weekend.
Yeah, superstars in the row, most definitely. John, I suppose from a game point of view, it was probably one that we were looking at in the calendar, obviously so early, given our club's involvement so late on. You're missing the likes of Gavin White, Shane Ryan on top of the lads playing the thing, so it was kind of that game was very, very early in the league campaign for Jack O'Connor and the Kerry team. So I suppose a 4-point defeat is never something that should be, I suppose, celebrated is the wrong thing, but you should be always disappointed defeat. But a 4-point defeat was kind of a hard-earned, maybe run out 70 minutes. That's kind of what Jack was summing up after as well.
Yeah, I think so, Ivan. And we saw Donegal. We felt last week that Donegal were a bit ahead fitness-wise in Kerry. I think the team Donegal put out, they meant they were looking for the 2 points. I think that Jack would have learned more from yesterday than he did from the Roscommon game.
Yes.
I think it was you're above in Ballyshannon, a tight pitch, crowd in on top of you. Donegal looking for, even though they mightn't say it, revenge for that All-Ireland final defeat. A lot to play for. But I think an evidence of how serious they were was, when they brought in Ryan McHugh and Oisin Gallen, Michael Murphy. It showed that they wanted the 2 points. It looked midway through the second half that it could be, you know, an 8 or a 10-point defeat. But we dug deep, to be fair, and you know, I suppose we'll speak about it later on. Sean O'Shea's display, an exhibition of kicking, really. And outside of that, I thought that his body language, his commitment, his desire, and you know, football-wise, but he got stuck in as well. He wasn't afraid to get stuck into those fellas, and that was good. It shows that his leadership and others came and responded to it. But you know, a lot of positive stuff for Kerry. You know, this is a team that are going to be thereabouts come the business into the season. Donegal, there's no question about it, and I think that Jack will be quite happy coming down the road last night.
Yeah, stand-up performance from Shawnee O'Shea. Liam, we kind of mentioned here, might have been on air or off air, that you know we didn't see a huge amount of him against Roscommon, but again this one he really stepped up, and I think Tony Brosnan as well. To be fair, between the two of them, they got the majority of the Kerry scores as well. So, you know, in defeat you can always take those positives.
It's great when you see the likes of Shawnee. Like last week, you were kind of looking for him at parts of the match, but you could see this weekend he took the mantle of leadership. You know, even in the first half when things weren't going right, he was getting on a lot of ball. He was after kicking 3 points. You know, he was really trying to get Kerry going when we were fighting an uphill battle at times. And I do think Tony Brosnan as well, definitely in the first half. No, I think Tony just when I suppose when you're missing so many players, you're looking for guys to step up to the plate and take a bit of responsibility. And I think Tony did that as well. No, he took shots yesterday that he normally wouldn't take with Kerry. No, there was a few that he missed, but I think he ended up at 6 points. You know, so we need a little bit more from the likes of Tony in that side of it. But you know, the way I kind of summed it up with the lads coming down the carrier, it was like doing, you know, your mock maths exam without a calculator, because you know that you have something in under somewhere in reserve, and that's what we had. I think we passed that test yesterday. Now Donegal, you could see after, probably a small bit disappointed. They didn't say it, but they thought that they were going to give us a bit of a trouncing yesterday with the team they put out, and when they saw what we were missing. And to be fair, like John said, at times it looked like it was going to happen, but with the new rules and the 2-pointers, it just shows that it can keep teams in the game, and that's what happened to us. The 2-pointers yesterday was a Shawnee kick five 2-pointers in the whole match.
4 Shawnee and 2 Tony.
Shawnee and two Tony, like. But it just shows you like that if we keep tipping away and keep in the game, because to be fair, in the first half it was our kick out. We just could not win a ball around the middle of the field, and we were living off scraps. But you could see what Donegal were doing, and I said it to Joe at half time. They played 4 across the 21-yard line on our kick out. They played 3 behind them, and then they laced across you could say between the halfway line and our 65 with 4 of their biggest men. No, you had McGee, you had Hugh McFadden, you had Michael Langan, and then this Kieran Gallagher, number 26, that started instead of Ryan McHugh. They were all 6'4", 6'5", so it was just a monster line across the middle. And the thing, what I felt was we weren't getting the ball on the tee quick enough to hit that easy pass between the two lines. But Shane, to be fair, in the second half did that, and like right up to the 60th minute, and I could hear the stats boys beside me because they were standing beside me. He radioed down and he said Kerry are 8 from 8 from their kickouts when we were starting to come back into the game. So it just showed when we were getting the kickouts right, we were putting them under pressure. Yeah,
I think we lost 5 in a row at some stage in the first half. Just back to Liam's point there, John, about Donegal kind of being maybe somewhat disappointed after, maybe not saying it, but that kind of feeling of disappointment. You can kind of see why. I think it was 10 of their starters in the All-Ireland final were starting yesterday, and there was only 4 or 5 from Kerry's perspective. So that kind of gulf straight away in that sort of experience. You can kind of see even from the Kerry team, and the subs that were made were all kind of fresh faces as well. So that's another kind of positive from Kerry, and again trying to pick out positives out of a defeat, but that definitely is a positive. You're seeing kind of new lads coming in up against a team that, you know, 10 of the 15 from the All-Ireland started as well from a Donegal perspective.
Yeah, definitely, Ivan. And I think, you know, the physical power of Donegal, they're huge men, you know, great athletes. Michael Lanning in the middle of the field, like he kicked 2 pointers there, but the power of them. But for our newer players, we'll say particularly like the Tomas Kennedy coming up against Brendan McCall, one of the best fullbacks in the country. He'll learn from that. You know, I think that if we went out with our All-Ireland team and we went up there yesterday and we came away with a victory, you wouldn't learn as much because you're playing the tried and trusted. But you're playing guys now that are playing for positions. I thought when Liam Smith came in, he did really well, caught a few great balls.
Killian Trant did well for
Trant
he battled hard.
Worked really hard. Killian Trant. Sean O'Brien going off injured was the loss. Armin Heinrich at wing back, he's growing with confidence. You know, we hadn't won a kick out for a bit, and he won a great kick out. Independently, went up and kicked to score. That's great confidence for these guys above in the cauldron of Ballyshannon against the team that are really rated. And I think that you know, there's no place to learn better than to learn when you're playing the best. And Donegal had a very good, strong team out yesterday. But you know, what relevance will that have later on down the road? Nothing really. It'll have no relevance in the championship. But the one thing we'll say about it is, and we spoke off air, Donegal haven't gone away. The hunger is there, the desire is there, and you know, I suppose you add into the mix the Mayos and the Galways, Armagh, you know, Kerry, of course. You know, it's going to be intriguing. Already, we're only 2 rounds into the league, but the levels of fitness by teams, you know, the way they're changing their game plan around to suit the new rules. The long kicking has come into it again, and it's amazing. We didn't try too many times yesterday, Liam. It would have been nice to get a few big ones in on Tomas Kennedy, just to test out the Donegal defence. But look, that's for another day. But I think that you know, you could see Jack's body language after. He wasn't too disappointed. You know, I think that they'll be quite happy, and you know, with how competitive the league is, you know, winning the home games, winning the odd game on the road, but this was always one that we've marked down as a difficult one, regardless what personnel were out. Yeah,
and again, so early in the campaign as well. It would have been a nice one, Liam, if there was something maybe on the line, if the winner got to a league final or something a little bit later on as well. We mentioned, you mentioned there about kind of Donegal being maybe somewhat disappointed. I'd imagine Jim McGuinness will be going back into training this week, and kind of, you know, they have their weekend off as well next weekend, don't they? I think it's every team's off next weekend. You know, would kind of probably want to see more from their lads as well, because you said it seemed like they was expecting to be kind of a big beating for Kerry up there.
Yeah, look, they'll be disappointed in a few aspects. All right, I think what they were really disappointed with was they were giving away a lot of handy frees. But I think there was an interview from one of their management team that they felt that Kerry kind of were very physical in the All Ireland final, so Donegal are looking at that side of it, and they did come out physical yesterday, and you know, probably at times they gave away a lot of handy frees and they genuinely war frees, you know. So, and it kept Kerry in the game, you know. So they'd be disappointed with that kind of a thing. But look, it's 2 points. I'm sure Jimmy McGuinness won't be long moving on from this. He knows that Kerry went up with a weakened team. No, so, and there'll be work from both sides. No, you even Kerry there, and we look at, say, Jason Foley. Now his game yesterday was better than the Roscommon game. I see Joe O'Connor is slightly improving as well. So as games go by, fellas will be getting sharper and they'll be getting fitter, and that's across the board, because we see the games the weekend. There's going to be nothing between teams. No, I think there's only 2 teams out in 4 points, and the rest are on 2, bar the boys and the bars in the bottom. And if you were asked to pick an All-Ireland winner, I know people will say Kerry at the moment, but like, they're in the whole pile between the rest of the teams out there.
No, absolutely not. And even you can add Kerry into that group of nothing between anyone really, which is great, and it's a good thing for the game itself. You mentioned the new rules, John, and Kerry really utilising the 2-pointer yesterday. I think we mentioned 6 in all, 4 for Shawnee and 2 for Tony. Like, what was a 6-point score is now a 12-point swing, and maybe if you go back to 2 years ago or the year before that, whatever else, you could have been beaten by more above in Donegal, but to see us get 6 2-pointers is good shooting.
Oh, great shooting, and Shawnee was, there was an advantage with 1 or 2 of them, and they had the shot, and it came to nothing. But they always knew they had the free to come if it didn't go. But David Colesic was refereeing, and like we've said this before, the top refs, they no matter how intense or how competitive it is, there was a lot of hard hitting in that game. A lot of hard hitting yesterday. Did Colesic use cards? Did he get? No, he used common sense. And I know that people often tell me after the programme, they meet me during the week, there's no common sense in the GA, in the rules. But I mean, the referees that are the top referees have the respect that players know they won't get away with it, but they win hard and fair. And he refed it as a player yesterday, and he gave the advantage, came back, did his job. If there was a card to be given, he gave it. But the kicking by Shawnee, a 7 or 8 point lead now. We spoke about it off air, Liam and myself.
Not a lead anymore, John.
No, if Donegal were up 2 or 3 years ago by 8 points, it was done and dusted.
Yeah.
But like we even we felt they were on top. You knew Kerry had a chance, and those 2 or 3 2-pointers, you're back in the game, and that's it. Has we're repeating what we've said here over a few weeks. The new rules have transformed the Gaelic football, and certainly the 2-pointers. You know, they're a joy to see now. The kickers are getting a chance to express themselves, and I think, and the other thing, Ivan, that we're going to see over the next few weeks is performances of different players in all the counties, but we're talking about Kerry, is some performances will lift and more will go back. It's due to the training now. There'll be training blocks going on. I'd say in the next 2 weeks there'll be a lot of work done, and we could see some of these guys come out a lot sharper in 2 weeks' time than they were now, because it's all about peaking. We got it spot on last year in Kerry, you know, for the championship, and it's all about peaking at the right time, and the levels of fitness and the work that goes in, and the commitment that's there is incredible, and we've seen it already. Look at all the games of the weekend. You know, the Mayo game. Look at Meath and Cavan. Right at the end, Meath pulled out a great victory. Galway. So it just goes to show it's gone to another level.
Yeah. Dunno Sullivan, nice to see kind of a new name getting a goal for Kerry as well, Liam. I know it kind of came late, but Kerry had kind of another chance after that to go up the field as well. It would have been like the game against, was it Derry last year, with all the goals towards the end, but took it well after a bit of a scramble, and Kerry, you know, probably had another maybe one good chance after that for a goal as well. It's good to, I suppose, even with 2 points and everything else, 6 points can come from 2 goals very late as well. And when you're watching the buzzer, especially now, there's no time to delay.
Yeah, and it probably was our only chance of a goal, really.
Yeah.
And towards the end, when we started kicking the ball into the square, we caused them a lot of trouble. When Shawnee moved in, we never did it in the first half. But then on the other hand, we just couldn't get our hands on possession in the first half, and it just break down very easily. And when we got our hands on the ball, Donegal were hitting us hard. I don't know if you could see it on TV, but every time a Kerry player moved, he got a belt.
Yeah.
And especially Joe O'Connor, Shawnee and Tomas Kennedy got very close attention, the 3 of them. You could see they were pinpointed, all right. They were pulling the jersey, they were hitting them belts of shoulders. Nothing, no closed fists or anything, but they were getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see Donagh hitting the back of the net. He seems to be a guy now that's coming off the bench, and he's trying hard, and he's holding his hand up there to be noticed anyway, and hitting the back of the net will definitely do him no harm. But I think it was just, we were going well in the first half. We were holding on to Donegal in the first half. We were staying touching distance and everything. The 28 minutes, Shane Murphy had a great save. I think Shawnee Shea cleared it off the line, and then Darragh Braille got an injury. This is what happened, and the physio ran on, and he had to come off the field. And when he came off the field, you can't go back on then until there's a break of play. But what happened was Donegal got a free at the far side of the field, and he ran in. And none of the Kerry, like people were saying, how was he inside alone? And they were making a show how the defence. But what happened? He ran in behind them. He was off the field for maybe 2 minutes, and then never spotted him, and he was inside all alone. So it just shows small little things like that. Can cost you.
Which was some finish by Darragh Braille, to be fair. Shane Malone, I think there was one of the Donegal that's pointing that he was inside, but the ball was worked to him. But there was a lot of work to do when he got that, and the way he sidestepped Shane Murphy and put it with his right foot into the net, it was a great finish.
And it gave the supporters as well fierce oxygen.
Yeah. Of course,
because they were fairly flat until that, but when the minute hit the back of the net, the whole place lifted. And Ballyshannon is a kind of a ground, very like Austinstack Park. It's a fine field, but the crowd.
They were nearly on top of it,
crowd on top, which is great for an atmosphere. And you could see then after that they were buying for blood. Then they wanted more than after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lads, we have to go for a break. Get your comments. There's plenty coming in this evening. 083 300 3300 is our text or WhatsApp, or you can give a call 066 712 3666. We'll be back for more analysis of Kerry against Donegal after we take this quick break. Rightio, you're welcome back to Terrace Talk. It's Ivan Hurley with you until 8 o'clock this evening. Time to get to some of your comments, and thanks as ever for getting in touch. Afternoon of the two managers, Jack will be slightly happier considering the strength of both sides. What is alarming though is issues from the Roscommon game not addressed, namely players in isolation and more so kick-outs. With a plethora of players to come back from Dingle on Gaeltacht, plus the likes of Diarmuid, Graham and both Cliffords as well as Shane Ryan, the opportunities to impress are diminishing fast. I mentioned Broderick last week. Maybe he should be given a stint. Regardless, we expected 2 points from 2 games. We are where we expected to be. And yeah, I think, John, that's a valid point as well, that we are where we expected to be. We did say here last week the home games are absolutely crucial, and again, travelling to Donegal, travelling to Terrace, not easy, or up there maybe the night before, a different bed, everything else. It isn't easy. There are long journeys and everything else, and when you're going to Croke Park then to play Dublin, it's tricky. So you're looking at your games against Galway, Mayo and Monaghan, those other 3 games. If you can get your maybe 8 points from your home games, you should be well set to stay in Division 1, and potentially with a win or 2 away from home, you'd be guaranteed a league final place then.
Yeah, Division 1 status is crucial. That's number one. And after that, then if you have enough points to get to league like we did last year, but it's there's going to be mistakes in the first few games. You've new guys coming in. It takes time. It's an unsettled team, and you can see the established guys how they did yesterday. The experience, that bit of composure. They're not really going that extra yard to impress. And sometimes we've all been there when you're trying to impress and you're working that bit harder. 'Tis then you're going to make mistakes. And let's not forget, you were up against McFadden and Micheál Lanigan in the middle of the field. 2 of the best midfielders in the country. Killian Trant worked extremely hard. Sean O'Brien going off, then Liam Smith coming on. 'Tis all disruption, but we did come to terms with it. To be fair, like Liam said, we did come to terms, and you're not going to dominate kickouts all through against quality teams. And if you don't win the kickout, it's the breaking ball, and we certainly up that. But overall, happy enough. And I think the Roscommon result yesterday had a big bearing as well, because some people were saying how good were Roscommon, missing the Bridges contingent, but they had a fantastic win against Monaghan. And the lads that did well in Killarney, they did well again yesterday, and Inda Smith was very impressive in the 40 from. It goes to show there's no easy games in Division 1.
No, there definitely isn't. That's why you want to stay there as well, isn't it?
I suppose the league as well, like John said, teams have different fitnesses. Now, you could see Donegal had probably that little bit more done yesterday, and your listeners think there how we got isolated, and it's, you put yourself in that player's shoes, that when you have 2 or 3 fellas coming at you who have that little bit more fitness, and you're stuck in a corner, and then there's fellas around, it's different. So you're going to have situations like that, especially in early league games, because you could see Kerry maybe just not, and Roscommon last week had that little bit more than us as well. So we'd be hoping game by game by game. Like usually the All-Ireland champions always kind of struggle to get out of the tracks early in the league, down through the years. And look, to be fair, the Roscommon game was a huge game for us to get the 2 points. We always had a kind of a red mark under this one, so we're looking forward to Galway coming to town out in 2 weeks' time. Now that's a home match again for us. Hopefully, according to a couple of the interviews with Jack last weekend, we'll have 1 or 2 players back. I think from now on you'll see strong Kerry teams put on the floor. And
that getting the 2 points early was so important. And again, All-Ireland champions, and all the clubs going so far as well. I thought that the Kerry match was very entertaining. John was correct on the new rules. Good man, John. They have made the game so much better. Bring on Galway on the 14th. It's going to be a cracker in Tralee. We were just chatting outside actually before we came on, John. Disappointing it's not kind of at 7 o'clock real under the lights. I think the Galway game, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's one of them at 4, and I think the Mayo game is at 5, or maybe vice versa. Still be kind of evening time, but that kind of real darkness under the Ossisack Park lights, there's something about it, isn't there?
There's something about it, Ivan. We've spoken about that, and speaking to supporters, you know, being in there early, 2 hours before the game with families inside and music playing and the lights on.
You can't feel your toes.
You can a crisp evening and you're cold, but it's brilliant. The atmosphere, no matter who you're playing, I think it's special, and it's a pity. But look, that's I'm not sure why it's on
scheduling and television,
scheduling and stuff like that.
They'll switch on the lights for you, lads. Don't worry, they'll switch on the lights as well.
They'll have to put a GoFundMe together or something. The throw in for the start and at the second half are now proving vital, and it's costing us scores. That's from Paul.
Yeah.
It is a crucial, that kind of first bit of possession, maybe particularly if you're away from home, is probably vital, isn't it?
Well, you're laying down a marker, and I think teams are looking at that now of how they can get scores off it. You know, so yeah, he's dead right. It's a big play now.
Can you ask Liam, did Donegal give us a guard of honour?
No guard of honour. No.
Probably should have been on the first game, if anything.
I think it's usually just the first game, isn't it?
Yeah, but Roscommon didn't give us one either.
Yeah. No guard of honour.
More of it.
We've been won too many times. They're tired of it.
Where were the linesmen who allowed the Donegal player sneak in behind our defence? Was that goal legal from Tom Enright Tarbert?
Yeah, it's legal.
Yeah, it's just
once the play stops, he can enter the field. Yeah,
it was just for whoever was meant to be marking him to see that he was coming back on the field or whatever else. Hive and Kerry made Donegal work hard for their win. Kerry only had 4 scores yesterday to Donegal's 11 scores. It would be better to have more scores. That's from Charles. Charles is right in that as well, John. The spread of scores wasn't huge yesterday, and that's why we're kind of probably pinpointing Tony Brosnan and Sean O'Shea as well. But again, it's tough going, and you needed those kind of leaders to step up and take the scores, and seeing Tony get 11 and so many from the dead ball as well is also important in a day where scores maybe weren't too forthcoming from the rest of the 15.
No, Charles is spot on, and I think the lack of scoring from play is a worry. To be fair, it shows how strong the Donegal defence was. We had 4 scorers. Donegal had 11. But look, it's early days, as we said, and it was. Look, Liam knows it, and anybody up there saw it. It's so difficult to get scores against that hard hitting. It was that type of a game that there was hitting
winter time
on and off the ball,
underground conditions.
And both sides were at it now. And in fact, that's why you give credit to Coldrick. Both sides were at it, and he let it go because it was real. It was played at championship level.
Yeah.
To be fair, and you could see that when the game was in the melting pot, then McGuinness started using the bench. He didn't want to lose the 2 points regardless what personnel was out.
Yeah.
But I would agree with Charles. I think that 4 scorers is something that Jack will look at, but I've a feeling it isn't a big worry. Later on we'll have more of a spread.
Yeah, we saw a good spread against Roscommon as
Absolutely.
well, didn't we? Boys, what are you talking about? Lovely supporters. I was in the crowd yesterday and I saw distinctly Donegal supporter booing Kerry players. Analysis should be unbiased. One of 9,000 booing the Kerry players. Look,
you'll always have a handful.
There's always going to be one, isn't it?
Yeah.
What famous ad had that years ago? Look, it's not nice in the game, but anyone might try to use their home advantage to the best possible. I'm sure there's some people in our crowds as well when teams come to town that mightn't be too welcome either. But overall, in general, I just find Donegal a fantastic county to go to. The people there are brilliant. We go up to soccer twice a year and couldn't be nicer people up there, really.
Yeah, very, very genuine, Ivan. Love their football. They know their football.
They know
their football, and actually love Kerry football. So that's a big thing as well. They love, So
and after such a journey, it's nice to get that sort of welcome as well, isn't it? When you kind of land up and there's people chatting about Kerry and everything else. It's nice to when you do get up there after a long haul spin. It kind of freshens you up again,
without a doubt. And Ballyshannon. We were talking to a couple of their stewards that were there before the match, and they were very proud that the match was on there because their capacity was only about 5,500 up to a couple of months ago. They're after doing a big job up there. It's up to 9,000 now, and in they reckon in the next year or two they'll have it up to 12 or 13,000. They're doing a great work up there. I remember I played up there in 2000 and it wasn't half the pitch it was. But it is a lovely stadium now, and there's great credit to them.
Yeah, it's great to see club grounds coming on like that as well. Hi to all Shawnee O'Shea pulled Kerry over the line. He had some great 2-pointers. Also, Tony Brosnan had some good 2-pointers at different angles, which was great to see. The three boys at the back should stay below what are they running up the field for and falling over and leaving an easy goal in for Donegal. There's enough up the field. They should look after their own corner. Will they ever learn? They did the very same at Roscommon. The young boys need a lot more experience at this level. I think it's time now to bring on the Clifford boys and the Dingle boys and the Guelph boys and Graham O'Sullivan. We need to start putting points on the board now. That's from Eilish in Tralee. And I think we've been kind of fair in that point, John. Like, you know, we're expecting a kind of a gradual return to action for a lot of these players. You're expecting the first couple of league games, we've pointed out already, were going to be the kind of trickier ones, the stickier tests. And you're bringing up a lot of youth and inexperience up to Donegal. Again, the team that have a vendetta out for you after an All-Ireland final last summer as well. So again, plenty of time for learning and plenty of time to bring your big boys back towards the end of this league campaign as well.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt, Evan. I can see Eilish's point there, you know, and it's valid. But you look, we had a lot of experience. We have a lot of good lads. You go through that 15. You know, these guys are there on merit, and it's you can look at this two ways. If Jack O'Connor put out his best 15 in his All-Ireland team going up yesterday, there'd be people saying you should give some of the lads a chance to see what he has under the 15. It's early days. He'll integrate those back into the team. There's no question or doubt about it. And the experience they'll gain from these games, the pace, the intensity, the ferocity of it, like is and with, you know, balance that with getting up to the level of fitness. There's a huge step up from club championship to inter-county league, not a mine championship, and I think this will benefit these lads. Every one of those got game time yesterday. You know, was looking at Liam Smith there near the end. He was out of gas. He was after a run, and it'll tell you that's what it takes. And Liam did really well. You know, maybe a bit disappointed not to start, but came in and did his job, and that goes to show that's what we got last year from the lads that came in and actually played in the All-Ireland final in the middle of the field. That's what it's about.
And what you're really looking for here, Ivan, the same as any sport. No, right, this mightn't be your starting 15 for in the championship, but any of these guys that came on yesterday, you'd feel comfortable of bringing them off the bench to do a job for you for 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe starting, because you'll have a lot of experienced players around them. Usually in games like this, you'd have a lot of inexperience, and I agree 100% with John. Now, if we started a strong team yesterday, people will be saying, "Oh, sure, now's the time to do it." So he did it.
There's a balance,
and I'm looking at all these names here, the likes of Evan Looney, who did come on last year and did his role no bother at all. The likes of Arm Heinrich had a fantastic game yesterday. He's a guy that'll come in and fit seamlessly. Killian Trent is growing into the Kerry jersey now as well. No, he's a guy that you could see Jack use. So all these guys, and you know, there's several more that you're building your squad, and now is the time to build your squad for the championship.
And we showed how badly we needed as well last summer when we had that injury crisis in the middle of the campaign, and kind of got us, those young fellas got us back into it and went on to win the All-Ireland as well. Lads, you have to go for another quick break, but we'll be back with plenty more from the Kerry Donegal game after we take this quick break. Now you're welcome back to the programme. How even when the championship comes around and the panel is little short and experienced players, these players who want to be winning all games will now be complaining as to why most players are not available. And that's another good point. That's the risk of injury and everything kind of this time of year is a bit higher, and we are just back and back into training and everything else, and fellas have been away on holidays and all sorts. It is, and the pitch conditions and everything else are tougher. So dead right that if someone is comes to summer and someone gets injured, we've no one to bring on because they haven't got the experience. That's important too, Liam.
It is, yeah, and I think that's the way kind of Kerry are going since the McGrath Cup. A lot of young guys after coming in, or guys that we know. Look, realistically, we know what David Clifford brings to the table. We know what Paddy brings to the table when it comes to summer. We know that when Joe O'Connor gets fitter, what he's going to, Shawnee O'Shea and all these guys, is to fill in the blanks around all these guys. Jason Foley, you know, and that's what we did last year. We had guys that were able to step up to the plate, and there's no bigger grounding or no bigger learning lesson for young guys coming in. Like Tomas Kennedy, you know, like had a tough day in the office yesterday. because
that's a learning curve.
And that's a learning curve, because every step he made sideways, he was met with something, even when the ball wasn't near him. So he'll be learning from that. Balls that were kicked in, battling, he'll be getting cuter. He'll be learning how to use his backside a bit more. And small little things like that he'll take away from the game. And that's the only way you learn, playing these games.
Yeah.
And Muslim, apart from Jason Foley, he was coming up against the best fullback in the country.
Without a doubt, yeah.
And like, this thing is, it's like you said, it's a learning process for him. He'll have learned more from that yesterday.
Yeah.
This is only his second league game, to be fair, and he was playing on a team that were being beaten in the middle of the field, so he'll learn from that.
Another guy yesterday now who fitted in nicely when he came on in the second half, Charlie Keating.
Yeah.
Strong young fella, didn't look out of place. Small little things like that the Kerry management will be looking at.
Yeah, and again, come the championship time, and you're playing, 3 group games or whatever else the format might be, and you might have to have a couple of fellas out injured or whatever else. These fellas want those games, and that game in Donegal where they were thrown in the muck by one of the Donegal fellas, that'll be in the back of their heads.
And they'll know they're fitter as well. Come the championship, these guys are going to be 10 times fitter, and they'll be more confident from playing games like this.
And if we look at what Jack is doing as well, he put Killian Trent in the middle of the park yesterday. He's obviously looking at guys to do a job later on in the championship. If the opportunity, he played wing back, so he's trying fellas in different positions, giving fellas game time, so that he'll know when it comes. You have to be confident when you look behind you as well in a game. If there's an injury or a guy out of gas, am I confident putting this guy in? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and that kind of getting that Kerry jersey, Liam, I never got one for football, I'll tell you that, but that kind of first time getting one, that's clear. It's kind of the family knowing you're going to be making your Kerry debut or whatever as you came on. It's nice to get all that kind of done early doors, that when it comes to championship, it's not just another jersey. I'm not going to say that, but it's kind of a case of you've done it already, and that, again, this kind of league format and everything else that kind of allows for that they've made their Kerry debut, that's kind of out the window then when it comes to a bigger game when they might have to come on.
It is, Ivan, and look, every time, and John will tell you this, every time you put on a Kerry jersey you get butterflies, and that's fantastic, because it's a proud jersey, it's a heavy jersey to wear, because when you don't do it, you'll be told about it. You could be told at home just as quick as you'll hear from the stands. But the thing about it is that like we said, the league is where you build up your bit of experience and build up your bit of knowledge and bit of cuteness. And you could see Donegal yesterday, all those guys liked, and when they brought on like some Michael Murphy and Ryan McHugh and these guys, if you were a young fella and you would see these fellas running at you would say, Jesus, but in 6 or 7 weeks time, or maybe 2 or 3 months time, that you have that built up in your bank, you'll be able to use that, it'll stand to you.
Yeah, most definitely. And like that, Galway coming to town, to Ostack Park in 2 weeks time, which will be exciting. One to carry footballers off next weekend. It's going to be a quick turnaround for the ladies, though. They're out against Meath on Saturday away from home after playing today. Again, Bank Holiday Monday. Great to see a great crowd there as well, and plenty listening to John, and I'd imagine Breda on the radio as well. Delighted to be joined by Breda O'Shea. Unfortunately, Kerry going down 2-12 to 1-11 to a Waterford side today in Fitzgerald Stadium. Breda, you're welcome to the programme. Where did it go wrong for Kerry today?
It's not so much where it went wrong. Waterford came with an aggressive running game, and we knew that, and in the last couple of years Waterford has been pushing us, and look, they got the rub of the green today. Last year in the Munster final we got the rub of the green against them, so there is very little between these two sides. But what I would say on Kerry's side of it, it's more what they can learn out of today going on in the championship, and a bit like I heard you speaking earlier, this is just the second game in. It's about peaking later on in the season. We don't necessarily want the girls running out onto the field today, bursting a gut and winning all in front of them in January and February. We want that later in the season. So it is to trial these new girls. It is to get players into different positions. And with the new rules, it's trying to adjust to all that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I think that, as you said, comparing to the men's, it is important to kind of, the early stages of these are kind of finding your feet a small bit, and obviously retaining that Division 1 status is key. But we saw last year, I suppose, we're maybe a small bit greedy after getting to league finals and everything else so early on. You're kind of automatically looking for that as well. But obviously new game as well, Breda, with the new rules and everything else, so that all takes time to sort of adjust into a competitive atmosphere where we're watching them on telly or heading to Fitzgerald Stadium to be able to talk about their matches as well. So it all comes very fast.
It is, and you see, these new rules have broken down the defensive systems that Kerry had prided themselves on the last couple of years. And Waterford did exploit that today at different stages, and especially in that first half when they got that opening goal 5 minutes in. So it really shows what has to be worked on. And we've seen that all through last year, especially with the men's when they brought in this rule, that it has opened up the attack, but it's the defence has to get back to maybe basics of where they are marking, man marking again, or woman marking, as we would say in the ladies. So it's just little things that need to change. But one of the aspects that I do think that they will be working on, especially heading into the Meath game, is the amount of ball they brought into the tackle, and then they lost in the tackle. So that did surprise me today, even compared to last week. Last week we saw them that they looked fresh, that they were running off each other's shoulder, waiting for that pass. Whereas today that didn't seem to come off as well for the ladies. So look, this is a hard slog for them. They had Dublin last weekend, they had Waterford this weekend, they had Meath next weekend. Then they have a break of, I think, it's 1 week or 2 weeks. So this will be a hard slog on them, especially after doing heavy training in December and January to get back into fitness.
Yeah, there was some questionable decision making by the referee, but again, we're kind of sort of giving them a bit of a break, getting used to new rules as well with both the men's and the women's game now as well. It's hard, I suppose, to keep everything in the head, isn't it?
It is, and you see, I suppose, and we discussed this last week above in Dublin, John Drummy and myself, when we were on air, that it is very much going to take a couple of games and seeing different refereeing styles as to how they are going to interpret the new rules on the tactical side, on the tackling side of the ladies' game. Because, you see, I suppose a lot of people didn't realise before, ladies' football was technically a non-contact sport. You were only supposed to tackle the ball when the ball was away from the body, whereas now they've changed that. But even in trying to read out the rule that they've come out with, it leaves it wide open for interpretation, that now you are allowed to tackle when the ball is in at the body. But then again, that depends on each ref as to how aggressive you can do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Windy conditions there in Fitzgerald Stadium. I stood outside the house heading for the car at one point, and it was fairly blustery myself. It even looked on the television today. It was quite a tough wind down in, I think, into the scoreboard end, was it?
Yeah, it was, and I suppose that's one thing that the girls will look back on, and I'm sure it will be analysed during the week, that when they did have that wind to their back, they slowed the ball down an awful lot. And like, I was even talking to a few people at half time and afterwards, and it is a thing of that. There's a lot of the girls on that team have come from a system of where we have to hold possession, that I have 15 bodies maybe between me and the goal, and I have to hold possession. So there was, in that first half, a lot of ball going laterally back and forth across the pitch while the girls tried to open up a gap in the Waterford defence. Whereas I suppose with the new rules, if we move that ball faster, and we saw one instance of that in the first half where Danielle O'Leary, she very nearly did breach, but literally the ball did roll to her feet at the halfway line, and she turned and laid it off into Rachel Dwyer. We were in a situation of 3 forwards, 3 backs at that stage. Everybody else was hightailing it from the Kerry defence. So in those situations, I'd like to see the girls to take on their players. So even if you're going to get fouled, you'll have the free in. But just take them on, because you never know, you might get that gap that would open up and you'd be in front of goal with just the goalie to beat. So it's just retraining, I think, the mind as to how we are to play, because for 5 or 6 years they have trained in that, no, I don't let the ball go. I hold on possession. I don't fire in a long ball to see if my full forward can get it. We saw in the start of the second half when we tried one of those speculative balls, and Leah McMahon had just literally come up and was standing beside her marker. She'd just been introduced into the game. She caught a lovely ball, and it was Rachel Dwyer was going out off the shoulder of her that she laid it off to, and Rachel was in on goal with just the keeper to beat. So it's just capitalising on those going forward. That's what the girls need to work on, and just changing the mindset from the game that they used to play to the new game with the new rules.
We saw Anna Galvin introduced fairly early in the game. Was that something? Was there a little niggle for Jane Lynch in that, or do you think it was more of a tactical thing?
I think it was more of a tactical thing. Kellyanne Hogan was sprung from the bench when Bree McMahon went off. We presumed it was a substitute, that she had picked up an injury, but as it transpired in the second half, it was actually only a blood sub. So maybe they brought Anna on that bit too early, that they were going to bring her on maybe in the second half like they did last week, because I know she's hasn't been fully back at full training as much as the rest of the girls. So I think it was more a tactical decision to bring her on, because straight away, as soon as Kellyanne Hogan was moved from the bench and onto the field, Anna Galvin came on. Jane Lynch had done nothing wrong in left, right or other. It was just to put Anna Galvin on, I think, to pick up Kellyanne Hogan. And as it transpired later on in the game, Kellyanne Hogan was reintroduced again in the second half, and it was Cart Lynch that picked her up that time. So, but like Waterford going forwards themselves, Kellyanne Hogan is flying off to Australia, so is Emma Murray. So that makes a very different team for Waterford come championship time for us. I would presume Emma would probably be heading sometime in April, because she'd be heading out as a rookie. Kellyanne Hogan maybe can hold off for the Munster Championship, but not much longer. So we're in the position of that, touch wood, we don't seem to have anyone signed this year to head off down under. So it's building that squad, talking to the players today. Like, yes, you still have Aisling O'Connell. She was there today. She's coming back off injury. Niamh Carmody, I do believe, is coming back into the fray. She's coming back to training this week, I think, hopefully. And you still have the likes of Deirdre Kearney, Emma Costello. If we could persuade one or two others that stepped away last year to come back in, and it's just to bolster that squad, because as we can see, Waterford were able to step it up a gear those last 10-15 minutes. And like Waterford were, Kerry, maybe 3-4 years ago, where we were gunning for every team and we wanted to be the top dog. So as it stands today, Waterford are top of the Division 1. They have their 2 wins. Nobody else has the 2 wins in the Division 1. And I think realistically, yes, look, of course it would be fabulous to get into another league final, but I think eyes must be on championship and building towards that, and really just maintaining Division 1 status. So heading out against the next day against Meath, they had an impressive win today out against Dublin, but I think conditions were poor up there. I just saw the last maybe 15 minutes of that game when I got home, but conditions seemed to be poor up there, and I'd say Meath made use of the wins they had in the first half and went in with a healthy lead against Dublin. But Dublin are a very, very experimental side, as we saw last week.
Yeah. From Waterford's standpoint, look, I could see in the post-match interviews they kind of had this thing on them that it was 7 years since they'd beaten Kerry in 2019, and to come down to do that in kind of Fitzgerald Stadium, they were mentioning there was a couple of girls going to have to do their mock exams tomorrow inside in school, so that's a huge result for them so early in the year as well, and that'll only breed confidence, especially if they are set to lose a couple to down under as well.
Yeah, look, it will. And look, Waterford have been threatening the last couple of years. You go back 20 years ago, Waterford were the team to beat. Maybe even 30 years ago. Sorry, I'll show my age now. But they were the team to beat under Michael Ryan in those times. But no, they have been threatening the last couple of years. They were just missing 1 or 2 key linked players. And even we saw that last year in that Munster final. It was purely experience that got Kerry over the line that day. And Kerry had been Waterford trying to make the breakthrough for a couple of years. So you do get swings, and like we will see, does the effect of Emma Murray and Kellyanne Hogan leaving, does it really affect them an awful lot? I know they're already down 1 of the Murray triplets. To lose a second one, that leaves just Katie there on the wing, and Kellyanne Hogan is an inspirational player for them. But you still have the likes of Taryn McGrath playing for them, Lauren McGregor up in the full forward line, and then Breed McMahon. She actually broke her bone in her foot before the Munster final last year. I think it was in the last game of Cork in the round robin game. So she missed that Munster final last year, and she is an impressive player. And like, she came back on after taking whatever knock she did have in the first half. I'm presuming it was used as a blood sub, and she came back on in the second half, and like, she took the opportunity of the goal well. We were exposed at the back, and she chipped it in over the keeper. Another day that might have hit the crossbar. We saw Schiefer try it with a free kick, and it just hit off the crossbar. So sometimes the luck goes your way, but Waterford are building, and they are coming, and they have strength, and they're well able. And Waterford have always been able to score goals. That's the one thing about Waterford. They've always got those goals, and goals do win games.
They have them in them. Breda, thanks a million. We have to go for news at 7 o'clock, but we'll have you back on next week, of course, to review the Kerry ladies against Meath. That's on next weekend. We'll go for news at 7.